To East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting today of the 27th of June 2023. Today is National Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Day, and I'd just like to acknowledge that and reach out to those people who, for whom this is one of the most common mental illnesses. And just remind everybody that beyond blue, the phone number is 1300 224 636. So if you or anybody you know needs assistance or help, please reach out. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meeting via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless that approval has been granted by the Chair, and that's me tonight. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend Council meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. Members of the public are invited to view the live stream Council meeting by following the link on the Council's website or Facebook page. If we tonight encounter technical difficulties with the live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved, and if those technical issues can't be resolved during the meeting, we may postpone to a later time or date. Ladies and gentlemen, East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monero and Bidawal people as the traditional custodians of the land and waters that encompass East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. Traditional custodians have cared and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future, and I in particular acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be here with us tonight or viewing us. Now, ladies and gentlemen and members who are gathered here tonight, a member's attendance can only be recorded as present at the Council meeting when that member can confirm they meet all of these criteria. That is because we have two councillors who are attending remotely. Now, these criteria are that they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. So now I'll confirm with each of Councillor White and Councillor Buckley in turn that they can see, hear and be heard by the councillors, and to note assurance from each other that their location that they're participating from is secure to ensure confidential deliberations remain confidential. Good evening, Councillor White. Can you see and hear us?
I can hear you, but I would like a wider image of the chamber because I cannot see the right-hand side.
Right, okay.
So I can't see the councillors or officers.
And just onto that, we'll have a look at that as we're progressing. So the image that we can see...
On the kitchen side.
It's on here, okay.
Yeah. And
so
Councillor White, we'll contact you and see if we can provide some support. Can you also confirm the location you're participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Councillor Buckley, good evening. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, Mayor, I can.
Thank you. Can you confirm that the location you're participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Indeed it is.
And if either of you councillors participating electronically experience technical difficulties during the meeting, we may adjourn briefly to enable a councillor to rejoin the meeting. Should the councillor be unable to reconnect within 5 minutes, the meeting shall resume in the councillor's absence. Excuse me. Let me just work my way through the procedural matters. CEO, I don't think there are any apologies.
Correct.
And councillors or officers, are there any declarations of conflict of interest? None are noted. Councillors, item 1.4 is confirmation of minutes, and I need someone to move, please, that the minutes of the council meeting 6th of June be confirmed. Do I have a seconder? Would either of you like to speak to it? No. Is the motion opposed? Councillors, I put that motion to the vote that the minutes be confirmed. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously, CEO. The next meeting, item 1.5, is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, 25th July at the Corporate Centre here, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Item 1.6, are there any requests for leave of absence? I don't see any at the moment,
None have
CEO. Thank
received.
you. Councillors and those who are gathered with us and online tonight, at the start of Open Forum, I'd like to acknowledge 2 Junior Rotary Community Award participants, Tully Robertson and Juliet Walker. Tully's from Lucknow Primary School and Juliet is St Brendan's Primary School, and the lucky parents are here as well. And well done to you two, young leaders. This is hopefully the start of your leadership journey and your contribution to make a great difference to the world and the community ahead. I'll just come down and give you a nice little Shire badge. And there will be a rousing applause from the gallery. And I always like to acknowledge the Rotary International for their support of these Junior Rotary Community Awards. It really does grow the leadership capacity of young people. And when young people take on leadership positions in society, the world is a better place. It is, isn't it, Councillor? Item 1.7.1, petitions. I don't think we have any, CEO.
Correct.
Questions of council? No. Public submissions? We have some public submissions, but we'll deal with those at the item.
Correct.
Right, thank you. Are there any items for noting? None. Notices of motion?
No.
Deferred business?
No, Mayor, there is not.
Before I move on to item 4, Councillor Van Diegel, you foreshadowed something to me earlier.
I did, Mayor, and I believe that that's meant to happen after council and delegate reports.
So we don't
but
want
can I do
to
it now
make an
instead, or
adjustment to
just wait?
the agenda now?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It wouldn't matter if it was moved at this point.
I might suggest we do that now, that you foreshadowed that motion. Did you want to bring that to my attention, please,
I'm just
Councillor?
wanting to do a procedural motion that we move item 5.2.1 on the agenda to be considered as the first item of business in section 5, officers' reports, just as I had a chance to meet people in the gallery and they're all here for Raymond Island.
So, Councillor, just to note that is item 5.2.1, petition fence along 4th Avenue, Raymond Island, to move that up the agenda to immediately after the councillor and delegates report.
Correct.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Would you like to speak to that, apart from what you've said already?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Would you like to? Is it the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak to that? So, Councillor Buckley and Councillor White, just online, in case you're not aware of that, we're just moving that agenda item up the agenda because we have some people from the island, and although they are at the edge of their seat to stay for the whole meeting, I'm sure they would be happily dismissed earlier. I'll put that motion to the vote, councillors, that we move that item up the agenda. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. That's carried unanimously, CEO. Councillors, item 4 is councillors and delegates' reports, and I'm happy to move to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I've submitted a written report, but I've got one late addition, and that's just to mention that the Bairnsdale Volleyball Association at the Victorian Regional Championships in Mildura on King's birthday weekend participated across 3 divisions in men and women's competition, and the men took bronze in Division 2, while our women won back-to-back gold following their success in Horsham. And the players come from Bairnsdale and Lakes Entrance and surrounding areas and include a number of our Shire employees. So I'd just like to put on the record what a great effort it is for our area. Thank you, Mayor.
Very succinct. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah. Councillor Stowe.
Usual roads, rates and rubbish, but I'll just make a small mention tonight of Friday night. There was the combined schools bands playing up at the Boucher Hall, and I mentioned it because A, it was terrific, B, there was a whole heap of people there. The hall was full, and C, Graham Curl was there. Now, Graham used to be the principal of the school. He's 95-year-old, and he found his own way up there. And he was the man who initiated this, the school music program back in 1975, and it's been a huge success. And the teachers teaching it are sought after throughout the state, actually. So a big shout out to them. They did a great job.
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Councillor Crooke.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to make a big shout out to all those people who have been involved in the Winter Festival events taking place across the Shire over the last week or so. I've heard fantastic reports, especially from the Medieval Festival that was held in Bruthen.
Okay.
Lots of really good activities and lots of local participation and people really enjoying themselves out in the cold of the night. So well done to all those people. I recently attended the Australian Local Government Association Conference in Canberra, which was a really good networking opportunity and a fantastic experience to talk with councillors from around the country. It's amazing how similar some of the issues they face are to our own, and also the big diversity of other issues in other parts of the country. Something that really impressed me was the voting on a series of motions, whereby you've got a giant big room full of about 500, 600, 700, 800 local government organisations represented, and hundreds of motions to vote on, and yet they have a system that allows that to occur in an orderly and functional and effective manner. It was democracy in action. I was thoroughly impressed. I think maybe it's something we could consider doing somehow in some of our own consultations. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Crooke, thank you. Good idea. Councillor Van Deel.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to include my written report for inclusion in the minutes, but I just wanted to share one of the highlights of the last 3 weeks is I went to Bairnsdale Secondary College and was asked to present to the Year 11s and 12s about my pathway into my career and into council. And it was really interesting because I feel like they knew I was coming, so it was foreshadowed that I was coming, yet no one actually had any idea what I did in both my career. So no one really had any idea about community services, but when I talked to them about council specifically, I asked them to raise their hand. Who knows, what local government councillors are? No one raised their hand, and there was probably about 65 kids there. And in Year 11s and 12s, I'm aware that there is a civics and citizenship unit that is taught within the Victorian curriculum. So even with that being taught, still no one had any idea who I was. And I made a joke, like, I'm the youngest councillor ever, and I went to this school, you should know who I am. It was a bit of a joke, but no one had any idea. So for me, it was just really powerful to be able to talk about what that meant and the lack of knowledge, I suppose, in young people, because a lot of them will be turning 18 and will be able to vote very soon at the next... Pardon? Scary. Yeah, but I think it's a really beautiful opportunity for someone like myself to actually go out and educate and let people know that it's not just for maybe the bit of the older demographic to be involved in council. But for me, sorry about that, guys. But that to me, it also shows a real gap in knowledge. And so it was really interesting to talk to people. I think people were confused when I was telling them that I'm a councillor as well as work. I think they were really confused with how that's possible, but I'm hoping that I answered some of their questions, and I'm hoping that I at least inspired a few people to start learning more about politics, and especially at the local level. So that was a real highlight for me, and I've also been asked to talk at Lucknow Primary School in a couple of weeks' time about it as well. So I just found that a really nice opportunity, and that's what I love as being a councillor, that I can do that.
Great. Good contribution. Terrific. Thank you. Councillor Buckley, I'm just moving across and around the room, and you're next in line.
Thank you, Mayor. So I attended a Rejuvenate workshop in Omeo, which was well attended, and it was really interesting because I was able to engage in seeing people exploring different models of rural entrepreneurship, and including social enterprise and community asset ownership, and looking at those models to start identifying essential foundations that are needed to bring community-led initiatives and taking them to the next level. And I think it's so important for our small remote areas, because quite often we feel like we're forgotten, and that we have to start leading our own initiatives, quite frankly. So I really enjoyed that, and there was plenty of participation. Also went to an MAV governance and procedures workshop, which I found very helpful in regards to understanding my position as a councillor and how I can use that knowledge to ensure that that I'm being effective in my representation for community. And I also attended a Marina Committee meeting as an observer, and I thought it was very good to see a meeting where people were really engaging, and I look forward to supporting the retention of that committee, who are doing really good work in providing community input and guidance to our officers. That's the end of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley, thank you. Councillor White.
I will pass, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greeson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add to what Councillor Buckley said about the Rejuvenate workshop, which I attended with Councillor Uri in Bairnsdale. And yes, it was really interesting discussion. So I'm just going to add in one fact, which was that they did comment that in the Scottish Highlands, more people are employed by social enterprise than traditional enterprise, which is pretty amazing. And talked about examples of local community taking over industries in Corryong and Yakandanda. I've been to a number of winter festival events, and every single one of them's been booked out, has been really amazingly good quality work, and I'm just so impressed with the Winter Festival and hope it keeps going forever. I also attended the ALGA conference in Canberra with Mayor Reeves and CEO Anthony Basford and Councillor Crooke. As Councillor Crooke said, it's a huge conference, and I will be writing my report on it soon. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Councillor Greeson, thank you. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, can only endorse the comments about the Winter Festival. There are so many wonderful events to enjoy, and that, of course, goes from the 9th of June to the 9th of July, so there are still more events coming up. I've enjoyed the Sailor's Grave event and also my first bathe at Meetung Hot Springs. I just wanted to mention I'm happy to submit my report for the minutes, but it was my pleasure to represent Council and officially open the Firewise Garden project at the Nungurna Primary School on the 21st of this month, along with the students, teachers, Aboriginal associates, CFA members with their truck, Landcare volunteers, parents and friends of the school. This happy event was the showcase of the children's learning about these fantastic native plants, which can be a buffer against bushfires. They refused to ignite despite application of a blowtorch, and that was very effectively demonstrated. Exactly. We had a smoking ceremony, songs and a barbecue and a tour of the new gardens. There were information kits available, and we've been asked to spread the word about these plants and how they can be used successfully in people's gardens. But it also, I think, it could have application for our council crews working out along the roadsides and public spaces. Many people contributed to this project, which was a wonderful success. So I've distributed a few pamphlets, and congratulations to the Nungurna School for this fabulous project.
Great, I'm glad you were there, and thanks for sharing the brochure. That's fantastic. Well done, Nungurna. Councillors, it's been an unusually busy time. There's a couple of things I want to point out. I attended the Carers Victoria Mingle in Bairnsdale. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Carers Vic looks after all of those people who are primary carers, providing invaluable informal support for family members or friends. Now, in Victoria, there's 861,000 carers, and in East Gippsland alone, there are 6,040 people who are primary carers, and they're volunteers here in East Gippsland. It's really quite significant, and that particular day, I think, was a real triumph to recognise the work that those people do quietly, every day, every night, right across our Shire. So well done to Carers Vic, really important. I was also a part of the launching of the Winter Festival at the Meetung Country Club, and it has gone gangbusters, the Winter Festival. It's fantastic. So well done all of you who are participating. And Adam Bloom, what a champion of tourism he and his committee is. So well done to them. I urge you to go and visit East Gippsland Gallery, the South East Now exhibition, and a fabulous piece by local artist Ray Thomas has caught my eye. So we may see more of that in the next little while. And those of you who live in Bairnsdale and surrounds will know the new Kmart store's been opened, and with a couple of other councillors we were able to attend the official opening. And it was a real triumph. It's a significant investment in retail in our town. Those of you who listen to Reg FM, you'll hear me, because today I recorded again my moment with the Mayor on Reg FM, and that's a really good thing to push out a lot of the work that the Shire does through that community radio station. And long may they last, and what a great community asset Reg FM is. Councillors, you've heard that we attended ALGA, Australian Local Government Association, and the Australian Council of Local Government in Canberra a couple of weeks ago. This was a busy week, and I was out every day and every night that particular week, including with our local member Darren Chester. We met Peter Dutton, Senator Duniam from Tasmania. We met Minister Watt, and we had some pretty robust conversations about the impacts of the early closure of the timber industry in Victoria. I was privileged, councillors, to dine at Yarralumla with the Governor-General and Mrs Hurley, and with 24 mayors from across Australia who had been who are mayors in areas that had disaster declarations that the Governor-General had visited over the last 3 years. And it was an incredible honour to be there and have dinner and to be able to meet some of those other mayors and share their stories. And some of them are quite personal. I know those mayors and had reached out to them when they were dealing with some of their challenges. As mentioned by Councillor Crooke and Councillor Greason, ALGA, there were 537 councils represented and mayors and CEOs, so it was a big group of people. And in particular, I just want to mention that we were able to directly meet and talk to Minister McBain and Minister King, so our local government and infrastructure ministers, and in particular to prosecute some of the issues and challenges that we have in our Shire directly to those ministers. It's really important. We also, through the Australian Council of Local Government councillors, were able to dine in Parliament House. It sounds like a bit of a junket, but it was busy, and I was able to speak directly and dine with the Honourable Michelle Rowland, MP, Minister for Communications, and speak directly about some of the issues and challenges we have, but also talk to the Honourable Chris Bowen, Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and about some of our challenges and opportunities about the renewable energy sector in our part of the world, and had a quick moment with the Prime Minister even. And on Friday I was able to talk directly with the Education Minister about some of the issues around regional disadvantage in education. So it was a pretty busy time, and last Friday, councillors, it was One Gippsland meeting, and it's a big day, One Gippsland, there's no doubt about it, and we covered off a great deal of information at One Gippsland. That is about enough for the moment, and my report I will table for anybody who wants to read that in future. And thank you, councillors, for your work in the community and for documenting that as you do well. Councillors, let's move on to the next item, which is the item that we've moved up the agenda, which is item 5.2.1, which is the fence along 4th Avenue, and I'll defer to
We have
Ms.
two speakers.
Weigel. Oh yes, we've got two speakers first, so
Yes.
Thank you. Speakers. Just a moment. Just a little reminder for those of you who are speaking. So we're very welcoming of members of the public addressing councillors, and we're also reminding you to extend due courtesy in respect to council, its staff, and the processes under which we operate, and please remember that you will take direction from the chair whenever called to do so. So the presentation is not a time for discussion or debate with public questions or submissions. It's about, but you may actually have questions from councillors of clarification. So, and I have the right as the chair to cease the question or a submission at any point if it's deemed inappropriate or inconsistent with our governance rules or our mutual respect charter. And for those of you who are here, our mutual respect charter is the pull-up banner that is outside and is on display. We all subscribe to the mutual respect charter, and as a workplace and a place of mutual respect, we request that those who come and join us do so as well. CEO, who do we have joining us?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, the first speaker is Ryan Brown.
G'day, Ryan,
Ryan's
welcome.
with us. There you go.
Nice to see you in person. We've heard from you a number of times. You have too. Good to see you again. We've got it.
Can you hear me?
10 out of 10.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm sure we all agree, hopefully this will be the last time. Firstly, I just wanted to thank the councillors for engaging in this process. You listened, you acted on feedback from the community regarding the fence along 4th Avenue, and I thank you for that. For those that aren't familiar or as familiar with this issue, or perhaps they're reporting on it, the council meeting on the 2nd of May, you accepted a petition to stop the construction of a fence along 4th Avenue, Raymond Island, signed by over 60 residents. You then, in my opinion, appropriately responded to the community concerns. You listened, you visited the island to seek firsthand what was going to be proposed, and tonight I hope you feel more informed to make a decision on behalf of the community, and that's the majority of the community, not the minority. And I thank you for it, and hopefully that will be reported next week. However, you do have to ask the question why it takes 60 residents to sign a petition. And I am still waiting on responses from phone messages, emails and letters dated March of this year, well before the petition. It is my feeling that staff do need to hear the impact of the council not engaging with the community properly. And I've outlined previously my experience and still experience a lack of engagement through this process. Residents along 4th Avenue have been exposed to bullying behaviour, not around this chamber, bullying behaviour from people who hide behind well-meaning organisations. And I hope we can fix that tonight. Some of this behaviour has included vile, homophobic abuse, threatening letters. Residents have been verbally abused in their front yards. We've had police reports. We've had VCAT injunction orders. Signs, as you list in your document, have been installed and have been stolen. And you have to ask the question, could all of this have been avoided if proper consultation was undertaken? And I'd like to think yes. It goes without saying that everyone on the island should have a shared commitment to our environment. We should protect our island. Yes, grass has been mowed and some may say degraded the environment. This can be managed through community education and consultation, which has not taken place. And keep in mind, you do mow grass 30 metres down the road. Finally, I'd like to close where I started and thank you, councillors, for visiting the island. Regardless how you vote, you've been able to hear the various different arguments. I hope some people in this room and perhaps outside the room can reflect on this experience and take some leadership on what should be done differently next time. I personally look forward to working with the council when developing an appropriate management plan along 4th Avenue, Raymond Island. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. And our next speaker...
Thank you, Mayor. The next speaker is Robin Peel, I believe is here. My apologies, the microphone wasn't on. Robin Peel.
Stand by. Sorry, Robin. Councillor Buckley, do you have a question of Ryan?
It was a question of clarification in regards to what the speaker had raised as an issue of community consultation. And I guess, is it possible for me to address that question to Ms Weigel, or is that something we would do later?
Can we hold that off, park that question until we get to the report, because there is some conversation about that in the report. So let's hear from Robin first and then and we'll hear from, you can seek that question of clarification when the report's up.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Councillor
you,
Buckley. Come on up, Robin. And I didn't provide clarification that there's 5 minutes, but I'll give you a little warning when you're getting close.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I represent the Koala Island Foundation as their president. I also speak on behalf of our project partner, Raymond Island Landcare Group. And I also bring a business perspective to this as president of the Paynesville Business and Tourism Association. We welcome the report and recommendations in tonight's agenda. The report acknowledges the partnership between community groups on Raymond Island and Council. The Koala Trail project, with funding sourced primarily by the Foundation, has enabled this. We're encouraged by recognition of the environmental significance of the coastal salt marsh area, the intent to develop a management plan to protect it, and the understanding of urgency as our grant window is narrowing. The Raymond Island Koala Trail is an asset to the local economy and to ecotourism in East Gippsland. It is also dependent on the preservation and protection of the unique ecological environment that exists on Raymond Island and is critical to wildlife, bird life and plant species found there. The Shire recently commissioned a native vegetation report for this coastal area. It lists 55 species as vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered that use the coastal areas of Raymond Island for sustenance and shelter. The Melaleuca ericofolia, the tea tree, along the foreshore is critical for the survival of 38 bird species on that list. The project site already has a boardwalk. It was built pre-2010 with federal funds sourced by the Raymond Island Landcare Group. It's there to protect and preserve the salt marsh by discouraging people from walking on it. The boardwalk is now a key part of the Koala Trail experience. The salt marsh will also provide an educational opportunity as one of the few remaining sites accessible to visitors. Deakin University's Blue Carbon Lab is providing information signs for visitors for that section of the boardwalk. The Raymond Island Koala Trail is a prime example of a nature-based visitor experience and important to the ecotourism reputation of East Gippsland. It was recognised as such at the recent Ecotourism Summit. We also welcome the opportunity for further community consultation. It will give Raymond Islanders the opportunity to show they support the project. Raymond Island Landcare Group has just under 100 members, which is quite extraordinary for that community. It's indicative of the fact that Raymond Islanders understand the importance of our unique environment. And we sincerely hope the residents who brought the petition to Council will engage in that consultation with an open mind and come to understand the project is about far more than a fence. In regard to recommendation 2, that no action should be taken to initiate the works covered by the existing land manager consent, we strongly believe that to protect the area from further damage prior to the adoption of a management plan, there should be a corresponding resolution that the owners and residents of properties on 4th and 2nd Avenues be notified that, in the absence of land manager consent, they not mow, cut or otherwise damage or remove vegetation in the project area. This is important. Absentee property owners whose fence lines border the coastal salt marsh engage contractors to mow outside their fences. In the past month, a large area of salt marsh has been damaged by mowing. It's important that property owners are given clear information to avoid further damage. We support the recommendations and seek protection of the site until a management plan is adopted, and we are keen to engage in that plan's development. The positive partnership between Council, the Foundation and Landcare on Raymond Island is important. It will enhance the Raymond Island Koala Trail, increase its value as an economic and environmental asset and support the ecotourism status of East Gippsland.
Thank you, Robin. Just stay there for a moment. Are there any questions, clarification, councillors? Councillor Stowe, are you happy to take a question, Robin?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. Robin, I note you said there's a significant area being damaged, yet I saw some old photographs were sent into council recently, and it appears in those photographs the area is much the same now as what it was then. I'm just wondering what the damage is.
Over what time frame, Councillor Stowe?
The last one was 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Our observational and photographic evidence over the past 3 years has indicated that there's been a gradual erosion of the tea tree in that area and continued mowing, and the mowing does affect the ability of the salt marsh to grow. Mowing also brings in weeds on the mower wheels, and that they can damage the fabric of the salt marsh if they grow.
Yeah, I was down there recently and I tasted some of the salt marsh that was right next to the pile of gravel that council put there some years ago. It seemed to be growing okay.
Yeah. Well, it is, because mowing has ceased for some time now, for the last probably 3 months.
Councillor Buckley, you've got a question of Robin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, as Landcare was the project manager, and I'm just seeking clarification on that, as I understand it. And did Landcare conduct any community consultation in regards to the plans that they had put in motion prior to this issue, these issues flaring up?
It's a joint project. The proposal was prepared by the Koala Island Foundation, who is the lead community organisation in the entire Koala Trail project, with the support of Landcare, because this is obviously their area of expertise. In terms of community consultation, in the lead up, we were requested by Open Spaces to do some community information, which we did. A number of newsletters, letterbox drops, and when the petition came in, we had a 2-page information sheet prepared to go to all the letterboxes on the island. But when the petition came in, that was put to one side and it hasn't been approved.
Okay, thank you for that. That was important to understand.
I should also say that the proposal for this and the PDF was on the Your Say page for everyone to see from April the 3rd onwards.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for the clarification in your presentation. Councillor Uri, you had a question?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Robin, you mentioned that the timeline for the funding to be spent was a bit of an issue for you. What length of time are we talking about?
Yes, it was meant to be spent by June the 30th.
Yeah.
There has been, this is over the entire Koala Trail project. It's a $500,000 federal grant. This is the particular component we're discussing. And that there's been an extension of that has been approved until December the 30th. So that is an absolute deadline.
Thank
December
you,
30.
Robin.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, councillors. Thanks, Robin. Much appreciated. Councillors, I'll just draw your attention then to the report, and Ms Weigel, are you going to lead off the charge?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. And councillors, before you is a report which specifically responds to the petition that was received by council on the 11th of April, objecting, as you've heard, to the fence proposed adjacent to 4th Avenue on Raymond Island. Councillors, I believe you've heard from both parties quite extensively this evening about some of the differing views on this project. I would just say, and as outlined in the report before you, this is not a council project. This is a project which is, as you've heard, is a companion to some council projects that have been delivered on the island to improve visitor and tourism experiences on the island, but it's not a council project. Our role is therefore that of land manager, and to provide land manager consent for any works on council Crown land. This is something we do with projects across the Shire on a really regular basis. We'd be issuing 60 or more land manager consents to individuals and community groups throughout a year. We have a process where we receive information from those groups, assess the information, and then if we think it is a reasonable request and it meets our policies, we will provide the consent. It is not part of our process to undertake community consultation as part of our land manager role for issuing land manager consent. So I just wanted to clarify that point. I believe that we've heard extensively from both those that are concerned residents and those that are concerned to progress the project. And having listened to both views, officers have presented a recommendation before you, which is to request that the CEO or delegate advises the Koala Island Foundation that no action should be taken to initiate the works covered by the existing land manager consent along Fourth Avenue. The reason why it is not revoked is because we didn't want to interfere with the integrity of the grant process that the Koala Island Foundation and other groups have undertaken. We're therefore and they're also recommending that we develop a management plan for the reserve adjacent to Fourth Avenue on Raymond Island, so that there's a clear management process for this piece of land going forward, giving the differing views about how it should be managed. With me this evening is Wayne Richards, who is our Manager of Community Facilities and Open Space and manages our land manager consent processes, and is available to take any questions of a technical nature. But councillors, I believe that the report before you outlines the issues, and they have been further augmented by both Mr Brown and Ms Peel, and we have a recommendation before you which I'm happy to answer questions on, as is Mr Richards.
Ms Weigel, thank you for that clarification. Good evening, Mr Richards. Councillors, questions? Yes, Councillor Greeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms Weigel, neither speakers talked about the role of this vegetation in preventing erosion, and I'm just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, because we do receive correspondence from people very concerned about the loss of beaches around Raymond Island and erosion that's occurring in different places. Can you talk to that for me? Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor, I will refer you to an attachment to the report, which was issued by the Australian Government, the Department of Environment and Energy, which talks about coastal wetlands, mangroves and marshes, and outlines why they're important, which really, I'll just read you the 4 dot points that are in that piece of third-party advice, which is that they serve a number of purposes, which to provide feeding and breeding habitat for fish, birds and crustaceans. They act as filters for nutrients and sediments, reduce erosion and maintain water quality, provide protection from storms and cyclones, and act as a carbon sink. So really we've taken our advice from the legislation, though I'm thinking that Mr Richards may be able to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I think you've covered it well. I think the information is included in the attachment.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Councillor Stowe, question?
Fiona, could I just ask you about that area specifically, not marshlands in general, but that specific area that we're talking about? Isn't there a rock wall right along there?
There is a boardwalk adjacent to it.
And a rock wall the other side of it?
So I might refer that one to Mr Richards, so around the rock wall.
No, right.
Yeah, thank you. There's a number of pieces of infrastructure along that section, some historical, some from a talking boardwalk perspective. The intent of installing the boardwalk is to maintain some public access with minimal disturbance to the existing vegetation. So there is some infrastructure along that section of varying age and of varying purposes.
Wouldn't that rock structure protect it from erosion?
The rock structure, or sorry?
I'm
go,
happy
Fiona.
to answer that question. I think we're getting into the technicalities of what a management plan may be developing for us, rather than a response to the petition. Why we're recommending that we develop a management plan is to understand exactly those sorts of questions.
Yes, I just see you referred to the that paper though, and I think that paper's talking in general terms rather than specifically about our area.
That's right.
I'm just not sure it's too relative to what we're discussing.
It's about that sort of vegetation, but it's not about this specific area, which is why we're recommending that we develop a management plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Stowe. Councillor Uri, then Councillor Crooke.
Thank you, Mayor. Fiona, I just wondered about the process of developing a management plan. Obviously, it would require quite a bit more community or some community consultation. Could you give us an idea of the timeline too? Please?
Certainly, and so depending on where a management plan is developed, the consultation will vary. But as we've heard this evening and previously, this area has got some very passionate followers, and so we'll need to ensure that there's a range of consultation. So really, we'd probably be looking at bringing in a third party to work with us to speed up this process. Our officers, whilst they have the capability of doing this work, are fully occupied. So we'd be looking at developing something. We're hearing what the Raymond and Koala Foundation are saying about their extension to their grant and their deadline. So we'd certainly be trying to develop something that could be used and inform any further works without jeopardising that grant.
Sure, and it sounds like everybody's working on the same page to the same ends to see that important area protected. So that's great. I was sad to hear about the poor behaviour that's been expressed down there, and while I wouldn't ever comment because I don't know about whether that's true or not, I hope that our officers will be firm and allow that community consultation to take place, but make sure it's respectful as well. I would hope that. Thank you.
Councillor Uri. Councillor Allen, you were next, and then Councillor Crooke. Sorry.
Thank you, Mark. As I recall, this petition, when it was presented, was in regard principally to a proposed fence along the road and around that area. And I think it's pretty true to say that good fences make good neighbours and bad fences make terrible neighbours. And from what I saw of it, I didn't think it was a very good fence. So the question is, will this process deal with the issue of the fence?
It'll deal with the issue of the fence, and I guess it'll deal with the root issue that the fence was trying to respond to, which is about protecting vegetation, so identifying appropriate ways to protect vegetation in the appropriate locations. So whether it's a fence or whether it's another mechanism, it'll probably address the root cause of why the two organisations were proposing a fence, which was around protecting vegetation.
Councillor Crooke.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is just an observation. I've had it put to me that there are two sides in this debate, and I've been to Raymond Island and spoken with some of the residents there and looked at the site myself. Both groups, who I don't believe are actually opposing sides, want the area to be revegetated, or so I've been told. Neither group, in fact, wants a fence, ultimately, either. So I really welcome this initiative. I think it's a good opportunity for us to move forward with some clarity around how the site's to be managed into the future.
Great. Take that as a comment. Councillor, is there any further questions? Councillor Greason.
This is a comment, not a question.
We'll take it as a comment then.
Thank you. I was very pleased to hear from Robin that there's been no further mowing in the last 3 months. So I just think this is a very good indication that the residents are willing to move forward with this with us. Thank you.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillors, has that exhausted your questions? In which case, there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I'd actually like to propose an alternate motion, Mayor, if that's okay.
Well, let's have a look at it and see if it has some carriage there, Councillor Crooke.
I believe that's been sent to Vanessa.
There it is. Thank you. Take a moment to read it.
So it is essentially the existing motion that has been printed in the agenda, with the addition that we ask the petition people, the residents who participated in that petition, or the lead petitioner, be asked not to undertake further mowing of the site, as I think this is only reasonable as we're asking the Raymond Island land care people not to undertake further works at the same time. So it's just asking for all residents to cease and desist while we all participate in the development of that plan.
Councillor, is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Greason. Councillor Crooke, would you like again to speak to the motion?
Certainly. Look, just briefly to say that this is obviously a piece of country that's important to the community. There doesn't appear to be a clear understanding within the community around its various values, and developing a management plan for the site with community input and engagement and some expert information as well will hopefully provide the management clarity we all require to see the things that the people value about this particular piece of country recognised and managed into the future.
Councillor Crooke, thank you. Councillor Greason, you seconded it. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that I think it's a fair addition to the original motion. It's a request to both groups of people to hold off until the management plan's in place. Thank you.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Uri.
Just briefly, I certainly speak in favour of the motion, and I'd just like to say thank you to the councillors who went down there to Raymond Island and did an on-site visit. I'd also like to appreciate the staff too for seeing this through, and to Mr Richards for taking on the carriage of this, the development of the plan, and I wish the community well in coming to a good resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillors, anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I might, if I can, councillors, and that is that I hope this process goes some way to actually uniting the community. The natural environment in a beautiful place like Raymond Island and the values it holds and that it provides to the local community, I think is one of the reasons you live there. And I hope that by undertaking this particular piece of work, it actually does unite you, and the value proposition of that site is something that you can hold dear, and it goes some way in future, as I say, to improving the outcomes for not just that site, but also for the social outcomes as well. So let's hope that that's the case. Thanks, councillors, for the work you've done on the offices. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, CEO. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thanks, officers. Raymond Islanders, you may stay if you wish. Good on you, thank you.
But you're not going to stay and listen to us.
Okay, travel safely home. Councillors, let's move up to item 5.1.1, which is the headline act tonight, and that is the adoption of the Council Budget 23-24. And our Acting General Manager, Business Excellence, Ms Elling, you're going to take us on this journey initially.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your consideration and adoption of the draft budget for next financial year, which is 2023-24, that you'll find in Attachment 1, including a declaration of rates and charges. The few salient points from the report are that the draft budget is developed to ensure the organisation is appropriately resourced to deliver the works, services and initiatives set out in the council plan that runs from 2021 to 2025. Key aspects of the budget are that the Minister for Local Government has set the rate cap at 3.5% for the next financial year. Council therefore proposes that the total revenue from general rates and municipal charge will increase by that same 3.5% in line with that rate cap. The proposed estimated charge in revenue from rates and municipal charges from the current financial year to the 2023-24 year for the three classes of properties are proposed to be increased by 4.12% for residential properties, 2.42% for commercial industrial properties, and 0.22% for farming properties. The budget proposes that differential rates for the farm and commercial industrial classes remain the same as adopted for the current financial year, being farm class to be set at 80% of the general rate and commercial industrial class to be set at 140% of the general rate. It's proposed that the waste levy of 51% that will be applied to each rate assessment the same manner as the municipal charge. With the significant increase in imposed costs from the Victorian Government's Environmental Protection Authority for landfill levy fees and additional waste compliance costs, the budget proposes that these additional costs be recovered through the waste levy, together with increases for both the curbside collection charges and waste user fees. These charges are proposed to be increased at a greater percentage than other user fees and charges, to between 7 and 8% on average. The budget also includes the introduction of a green waste disposal fee of $12 per cubic metre to assist with the offsetting of the costs associated with the collection and processing of green waste. The budget also shows government funding that's been provided to government for a number of programs and projects to support ratepayers in the general community to recover from the impacts of the 2019 bushfire event. The budget includes $8.2 million towards these funded programs. Some of these initiatives and projects included in the budget are rate waivers to continue for all eligible ratepayers whose main dwelling was destroyed in the 1920 bushfires for this coming financial year, continued bushfire recovery support and assistance to the community in recovery processes, and continued rate rebate for all eligible pensioners of $62.47 for that financial year coming up. The draft budget proposes a significant capital works program of $119.263 million, which has a strong focus on the renewal of East Gippsland's considerable infrastructure, together with several new initiatives. Significant government funding of $54.209 million towards these capital projects is expected. Finally, the draft budget forecasts an operating surplus for next financial year of $43.599 million, noting that the underlying result, which excludes recurrent capital funding from the operating result, is a deficit of $10.179 million, mainly due to $8.2 million of grant funding expenditure that will be incurred in the following financial year, so the one coming up. But the income from those grants was received in previous financial years. The officer recommendation for you all, councillors, you'll find on page 10 of your agenda. And with me this evening is Ms Liz Collins, Manager Finance, to address any questions of a technical nature that you may have. The report is presented for your consideration.
Ms Alling, thank you very much for that. Good evening, Ms Collins. Good to see you. Councillors, questions? Councillor Stowe.
I notice we've got a green waste of $12 for a trailer. I'd just like to clarify what constitutes a 6x4 trailer. With grass clippings and compact materials, it could possibly be 30 centimetres, but on the other hand, if we were pruning trees or roses, there'd be a lot of air amongst the waste, and it could be perhaps the height of a car. How do we define a 6x4 trailer?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mayor, I might answer that query. We're currently developing some guidelines for our staff so we get some consistency around that, and recognise that that issue is one where there can be some variance in what you can get into your trailer. So really it'll be around what is legal, on the road. So as you've said, can't be above car height, but we intend to be somewhat lenient with that, understanding that different people will have different abilities to pack their trailer in different ways. So we will develop some information. These charges don't come into place until September, so we'll be developing some information and that we can distribute to the community prior to that.
Thank you for that. And if you may indulge me for one more.
Sure.
We're charging $12. I understand that's fairly low in relation to other councils. Do you have any other councils, any other idea of what's being charged elsewhere?
Thank you, Councillor, and again through you, Mayor. We have looked at a range of councils, and this is very much on the low side. Our neighbouring council in Wellington, for example, charges $16. La Trobe, the next one along, is charging around that $20. So we are below most of our neighbouring councils. So it is a relatively low fee in comparison to others.
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Councillor Van Diegel and Councillor Uri.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
The first one being in regards to the green waste as well, because obviously the community feedback was that was the biggest area of concern. And one of the things that was noted was illegal dumping of if you don't have. So I know we spoke about it earlier, but about having a waiver, like the fee waived for a certain period of time. But you had mentioned that could also, in November, the fee would be waived for that month because of the risk to bushfires. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor,
Yeah.
and again through you, Mayor.
You happy to take that, Fiona?
I'm happy to take that one. So yes, when we were looking at proposing this fee, we recognised that bushfire preparedness is very important for our communities. So we are proposing that there is the month of November is a free period, so you can bring in loads during that period for free. For the entire month. And we're also looking at issuing a free voucher. So just as we do a hard waste voucher, and that allows people to bring in a certain amount of hard waste every year for free, we would issue a green waste voucher which would allow a trailer of green waste for free every year as well.
Great, I think that would be
Thank you.
really helpful. And also probably directly to you, Liz. I'm actually interested to know what the difference is between the rates that we collect and the municipal charge, because from what I sort of read, the money goes towards the same thing. So can you differentiate the two for me? The general rates we collect and the municipal charge, and what that money goes towards?
Through you, Mayor, thank you, Councillor. The municipal charge, under the current legislation, a council can have a fixed charge, being a municipal charge, as part of that structure. Some councils have a municipal charge, some don't, and they just charge by the rate in the dollar on the valuation. But the municipal charge can be up to 20% of the total rates plus municipal charge. Currently, council has a municipal charge that is 14% of the total rates and municipal charge. And in the legislation, it identifies the municipal charge. It contributes towards the general administration of the council. So, hence the ability to have that charge. I hope that explained that.
It's a big thing, isn't it, the rates, what it goes towards?
If
3 years in, I'm still getting my head around it.
Just to comment that if we didn't have the municipal charge, then the same revenue would be raised, but all through those rates in the dollar applied to the valuations. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It is a bit of a dark art rating, there's no doubt about it.
It's amazing. 3 years in, I'm still getting my head around it. I do have a few more questions, but I might leave them and see if they're answered
Sure,
elsewhere.
thank you. Councillor Uri?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms Collins, I think this is for you. So this year there was some way that rates could be paid. I think it was the four instalments that some people have chosen prior to this, but we don't allow that, or our systems don't allow that to happen anymore. And it's caused a little bit of confusion with some people, although we did send them all letters. Could you please explain that change? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Uri. For a number of years, Council has provided an instalment payment option that we would recommend tonight with the budget, which was 9 monthly direct debit payments, and that was then managed by Council through its rating system, and they're set up and they automatically would continue on from 1 year to the next, and it would automatically calculate the amounts of those monthly instalments, and it would automatically calculate
if there was any adjustment to the rates for that ratepayer. Council's currently implementing a new rates and valuation system as a result of our current software reaching the end of its life. And unfortunately, one of the that ability that we had in the old software to manage that very well on behalf of council and the ratepayers is not available at this point in time with the new software. So it becomes a very manual process, manual calculations, manual maintenance, manual adjustment. And we had to, I guess, that decision in terms of do we have the resources and ability right at this point in time to be able to continue with that 9 instalments. So what happened was the people were advised that we can put them automatically onto the 4 instalments, which we must offer under legislation. The 9 is a council option. The council has, it's not legislated, it was the council option, that 9 instalments. And if that didn't suit their circumstance, then they're encouraged to contact council and work through what other ways they may be able to set up payments that met their particular financial circumstance. So many of those ratepayers commented they weren't aware that they could set other payments up in other ways that still met their requirements. It could be fortnightly BPay direct payments to council, or a number of other options through Centrelink for some people, fortnightly payments coming through for their rates. So some people have gone away actually quite happy, not realising that they had other options to maybe spread it even further across the year. So we are encouraging people to have the conversation and appreciate that, yes, it was available. Unfortunately, it's at this point in time no longer available, but I will say that we certainly have put forward that as a development proposal with our new software. So hopefully at some point in the future we will be able to offer such a plan again.
Councillor Uri, thanks for that question. Councillor, is there any further questions? Councillor Crooke.
Thanks, Mayor and Liz. When I get asked questions about our budgets and about what council does, the 2 most popular things are grass and roads. Now, I just notice here, and forgive me for not maybe having across all the detail, that in our total roading budget of almost $13.5 million, we've only got a gravel renewal road program to the value of $1 million. Can you assure me that that's enough for all our gravel roads? It doesn't seem like very much.
Fiona, is this your patch again? Assets and...
It is,
yep.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. The road budget has actually increased this year. So we have both a maintenance budget, which is part of our operating budget, and we have a capital budget. So the gravel road is in the capital budget, but there's a lot of gravel put on our roads through our maintenance budgets as well.
Understood.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Councillor Crooke, probably the correct answer is there's never enough money in the budget for anything. So, Councillor White, then Councillor Greason.
Just from people who have spoken to me pre the budget and were wanting to put in responses, the question's been asked, could, here tonight we're looking at about 200 pages. Could it be condensed into a version that's perhaps a bit more readable for average people, like other than a good accountant would spend hours poring over it, where somebody's just interested in where the money goes and where it comes from? Is there a way to condense that down to a short version as well, so a general public get a better understanding of how our budget is formed? Do you, Liz?
Interesting question, John. Thank you for that. And it sort of goes to the heart of what are our requirements in terms of reporting and what can we simplify?
Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor White, for that question. And whilst, yes, you certainly do understand that in terms of the document itself, the 122 pages there, that we must produce in terms of that budget document by legislation, what we do certainly try and do is, for example, through the fact sheet that we develop and goes onto the website, and we also provide hard copies at the service centres during that budget period where people can provide feedback. We do in there include some of the key highlights of the budget, key initiatives in the budget, and so hopefully that does help the general reader of the budget to focus on some of those key points that are in the budget for that particular year. It also highlights some of the key capital projects rather than people having to trawl through the many pages of the capital program if they don't wish to do that. So I think that we try to do that to the best we can in terms of putting the key points into something that is fairly concise but focused on the key components of the new budget. But certainly we're always happy to take further feedback on what people, may be looking for that we're not currently providing. So thank you for the question.
Well, just an add on to that, excuse me, Liz. You've actually said that you do supply that. I would suggest then possibly that the general public don't maybe know of these ways. So maybe we need to find a better way to advise them that you already have a document available that's simplified how we do this, because not everyone's got a computer and not everyone goes on the council's website. But at least I'm pleased to hear that you are producing something like that, which will make it a lot easier for general public to follow the budget. I have a couple more questions, so while I'm got the microphone on.
Sure, go ahead, Councillor.
This one's to you, Stuart, because you're bushfire recovery. Understand that we still have money left over. I was just wondering, how is that going to be dispersed? I may be incorrect, but that's my feeling, that there was still some bushfire recovery money left over, and I was wondering how that might be dispersed, and probably should be dispersed fairly quickly.
Thank you, Councillor White, and through you, Mayor. There is funds that Council continues to hold to support bushfire recovery. The money has been provided to Council up front for services to be delivered over an extended period of time. So currently we're working through to periods of mid-2025. So we still have a significant period to run, both in terms of funding of council staff and funding of some services that we've identified, as well as specifically funded projects. So there is, it's probably fair to say at the moment that the money that we have been allocated in that way has been planned and allocated for those services over that extended period of time. As we proceed, it's possible that at different points the funding required for a particular initiative, for example, there's money that's been set aside to assist and support people through the rebuilding process. It may be that the full amount that's been allocated to that turns out not to be required, and we will be in a position to reallocate that for other projects, but that work is continuing, and as it stands today, that those funds, as I said, that their expenditure has been planned, but that's not to say there's not an opportunity in the future should expenditure on a particular item come under budget.
Okay, then,
Councillor White,
so
thank you.
Because Liz mentioned before that people who were still affected by the bushfires and had lost their principal place of residence, so were not paying rates as such, can the council recoup that generosity via the bushfire recovery money to balance the books on the rates?
Thank you, Councillor White, and through you, Mayor. There has been an allocation that's been included along those lines.
All right, that's good news too.
Thanks, Councillor White. I'm
Last-
just conscious
the
other
last
councillors
one.
have got questions. Last
Yep.
one.
Last one from me.
Good.
It is another massive capital works budget, and we've just heard today where we sit with the this last financial year and the fact that we haven't been able to complete all the work. Do you think we have the capacity in this next financial year to complete another $100-odd million of projects? Fiona.
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor, there is actually another report on this agenda that talks about the challenges we've had with this year. A lot of the projects that we're moving into in the next financial year are already under contract. We've already got $35 million of the budget under contract, which is a really good starting point. Hopefully there's not going to be any more COVID restrictions, and hopefully we won't have the same sort of weather restrictions that impacted some of the budget and our ability to spend some of the money this year. I believe we're in a better position. We're resourced internally to assist with that delivery. So I'm sure there will still be some challenges with occasional projects, but I'm quietly optimistic that we're in a really good position to deliver a really big budget, a capital program to our community. We're also working with funding bodies who understand now the challenges of delivering complex projects and have given us more leeway in our grant funding to deliver those. So some of the programs had to be put into the 22-23 year because of the tight grant timeframes, whereas now the grants are reflecting the true delivery time for some of those projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor White, and we can explore that at 5.2.4, those external factors impacting the capital budget. Councillor Greason, you had a question?
Just quickly, whilst our rates and fees and charges have gone up, will go up 3.5%, waste is going up 7 to 8%. Would you mind explaining quickly about the EPA levy charges and state government imposts that are driving this? Thank you.
Councillor, the EPA through the state has introduced a landfill levy, which I'm just trying to open a document so I can give you the actual figures as we discuss this. The EPA levy was introduced over 3 years, so it increased over that 3-year period. So in terms of this year, I'm just trying to find, it's over $1 million of increase to the fees. So that's on top of the fee that we were already paying. So a large percentage of our increase in the waste fees is actually to meet those imposts that are placed on us by the state government, by the EPA, for the licensing and the managing of our landfills, as well as the true cost of managing those landfills that we have to undertake as well. So it is a significant cost. The cost of airspace is significant in our waste. So unfortunately, we have to match that with fees and charges. There's an expectation from the state government as well that we don't cross-subsidise waste, that waste is full cost recovery, so that means that waste charges need to cover the full cost, so we have a zero balance budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Greason, thank you. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms Wiggle. And this follows on from what you've just explained. The waste levy was introduced to councillors as a temporary levy, and I'm just wondering, after that explanation that it's a state impost that we're trying to address, when will it be no longer needed?
So the waste levy that is introduced by an EPA is an ongoing charge. The way we have our waste levy, sorry. Our waste levy. So we have introduced a waste levy, so it's very clear that we're and what the costs are. So the waste levy covers the costs of the state government levy. So our levy, so on the rate notice there will be a waste charge and then there will be a waste levy. The waste levy will cover the costs of those increase in the costs of the state government's levy on our landfills and also the additional costs of managing waste. So that's likely to be an ongoing cost unless there is a change in the way the state charges for waste. Then there is also the green waste levy, which is new this year, and that's the one that, Councillor, we will continue to review every year as we work towards trying to add value to our green waste and see if we can add some value to it, and then hopefully we'll be able to manage the green waste fee accordingly.
So my second question is in regards to the green waste. We have a business model in place for the recycling of the green waste, and what date will the recycling plant be operational, and will that indeed mitigate the necessity for a green waste fee?
So the green, the state government again has introduced legislation that says by, I think it's 2028, but I might need to check that, all councils must have a FOGO, which is a food organics and green organics processing system, which is what we're working towards meeting. So we have to have this in place by, I think it's 2028. We're working towards having that in place for green organics before that, and then introducing the food organics in 2028. So that's our time frame for the whole food and green waste will be 2028. We're working on the design of our green organic composting processes now, with the intent of getting those through as soon as we possibly can.
My final question, how much has been spent on consultancy fees in the 2023? Sorry to spring that on you, Liz, but we did discuss this in a briefing. And do we have programs in place to monitor the number and need for consultancies to be engaged to ensure that the charges are fair and there are no conflict of interest scenarios?
Is that a question for you, Liz? And what budget line is that shown in?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. In the budget for the 23-24 year, consultancies are shown as 4.135 million, and therefore they obviously relate to a whole range of different projects and services. You know, some of these in funded programs and others in just some of our other normal work. So, yes, that's on page 41 of the budget document.
Very good.
And just the second part of that question was, is there a program in place to make sure that there's no, this may not be Liz's area, but that there is no conflict of interest scenarios presented? It's rather topical at the moment.
I might defer that to Manager of Business Excellence around procurement policies and how we manage that.
That's correct. Thank you, Councillor Buckley, for your question. Through you, Mayor. Yes, consultancies are acquired, engaged by Council in accordance with the procurement policy, and there are clear parameters in there around conflict of interest and seeking value for money and determining the most appropriately skilled and capable consultants to provide us with the services required for a particular aspect, whether it be design through to other types of advice. I hope that addresses your question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Ms Elling. Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillors, any further questions? I can't see any more questions. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Uri, do we have a seconder? Councillor Allen. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, I would. The 2023-24 budget represents what I believe is a responsible and balanced approach to ensure that Council has the necessary resources to deliver the works, services and initiatives our communities expect, and as outlined in the Council Plan 2021 to 2025. In recommending this budget to Council for adoption, I would like to provide an overview of some of the detail, although I won't repeat some of the details that Ms Elling has already outlined. It is a budget that has been considered at length, informed by significant work of council officers, our time spent in communities and the feedback from residents and ratepayers. The budget responds directly to the council plan's key objective that we are a transparent organisation that listens and provides effective, engaging and responsive services, and strikes a balance that allows council to provide a broad range of services which cost more to deliver, maintain existing infrastructure, continues to deliver the largest capital works program and use a pay system for some services to offset costs. In developing the budget, we were very aware of the challenging events that some across our Shire have faced in recent times, including cost of living. We understand the concerns and hardships that the communities we represent and live in have experienced. The budget process is significant, of course. This is a very important part of council work, and it's a task that council takes very seriously. I would just like to add a big thank you to our officers, to Ms Elling and Ms Collins, Liz Collins in particular, and the finance team. Councillors have been led through many briefings as we developed this budget, as usual, and as we stepped through the budget process, we asked a huge number of questions, including exploring different scenarios to try and settle on the fairest and wisest options. So thank you for bearing with us, Liz in particular. We understand that rate payments can be a challenge for some people. We are committed to assisting every ratepayer in managing their payments. Therefore, I encourage anyone who would like to discuss the many options for rate payments to please reach out to Council. Council actively sought feedback from the community regarding the draft budget 2023 and 24. Most of the feedback, as mentioned already, focused on the proposed introduction of a green waste fee of $12 per cubic metre. Councillors thoughtfully reviewed the feedback received, and while we valued the input, after careful consideration, no amendments were made to the draft 23-24 budget. And we've been looking, some of the other councillors might like to comment on this, we've been looking at some comparative fees for green waste in other councils, and it's by no means, I think we decided that we were the only council in Victoria that has had free green waste. In fact, in every other council there is a charge. So we don't take it for granted. The introduction of the green waste fee will help offset the $700,000 cost of processing green waste by an expected $540,000. The remainder of the cost being paid for by other waste user fees and charges. We believe that it is fair for users of the green waste service provided at Council's waste facilities to contribute to the cost. The draft budget proposes to benefit our communities through a substantial capital works program. The program places a strong focus on renewing East Gippsland's extensive public infrastructure and introducing several new initiatives. Some of the capital projects are staged over a number of years, while there are a range of projects that are being delivered right across our Shire. We expect significant government funding of $54.209 million to contribute to our essential capital projects. Just to mention a few of the project highlights for this year's budget: the Bullock Island Master Plan implementation at a cost of $2.07 million, the World Sporting Precinct Stage 1 at $11.01 million, the Omeo Mountain Bike Trails at $5.97 million, and the Crowatungalong Walk Stages 1 and 2 at $5.6 million. I should mention the Eagle Point Foreshore Hub also at $2.5 million. There are many other projects listed in the budget papers. I believe the budget is responsible. It ensures that Council has sufficient funds in reserve to respond to unexpected events and contingencies. An estimated surplus for the 2023-24 year of $43.559 million. However, it's important to note that when accounting for non-recurring capital income, the The underlying result is estimated to be a deficit of $10.179 million. I do encourage our community, members of our community, to thoroughly review the budget document alongside the council plan, the 10-year financial plan, the 4-year revenue and rating plan. These documents provide a comprehensive overview of the works, services and projects council delivers in a financially sustainable manner for every East Gippslander. Councillors, I firmly believe that the budget 23-24 is responsible, equitable and in the best long-term interests of East Gippsland and its community. It supports the continued delivery of services and programs our community expects and capital projects that are stimulating our economy now and will support our communities for generations to come.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor Allen,
Mayor,
second the motion.
Mayor, I wish
Councillor
to
Buckley.
move a motion. I wish to move a motion for the suspension of standing orders.
Okay. Just stand by. Yes, can you just advise the reason for wanting a suspension of standing orders?
I think I have to be. It has to be seconded first before I present a rationale, doesn't it? Is that?
Well, I'm not
procedure?
sure. I think somebody who can second it needs to know why.
Yes, to open the floor to debate and discuss openly the.
So can you start that again? Sorry, I was distracted.
To open the floor to debate, to discuss the merit of the budget, so that councillors can give a clear view on their position in regards to the green waste and also other matters pertaining to the budget, so that community can have a clear understanding of where they sit.
Sorry, I'm going to seek clarification. This is an unusual situation. I've never had a suspension of standing orders so we can have a debate. I'm just seeking some guidance from governance and why that wouldn't be included in the debate process. Just stand by.
Oh, no. Well,
Yeah, sure.
I think that's how it affects people.
Point of order, Mayor.
Sorry, what's your point?
I was just didn't understand the Deputy Mayor's comment then.
Sorry, the Deputy Mayor's comment wasn't relevant to anything that's happening. So there's no point.
Thank you,
So
Mayor,
we're just seeking clarification, Councillor Buckley. So, Councillor, just stand by. We are in debate and we're seeking clarification on if this is a valid reason to suspend standing orders, and it may be the discretion of the chair, so stand by. Janelle? Yep. So my question is this a valid reason to suspend standing orders?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. My interpretation of the governance rules, the procedural motion to suspend standing orders would not allow any debate on any matter to occur, as Councillor Buckley has indicated is her wish.
Yep. That would be my understanding, that debate happens while council is in progress rather than while standing orders are suspended. Councillor Buckley, so I'll overrule that and we'll continue the debate. Councillor Allen, you seconded the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank the staff for their patience and the great work that they've put in for developing this budget. I think work started on that about December. So thank you very much for bringing it to us tonight. And I think it's a very well considered budget, that maintains existing services at the same time as delivering a large capital program to the benefit of all the Shire. Thank you.
Councillor Allen, thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else? Councillor White, you're opposing the motion to move the budget. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. My concerns are that I don't understand why the rates have had to go up. Everyone's saying that the council needs the money. If the rate cap had been put at 7%, would we have grabbed that with both hands too? The thing is, I don't understand why council can't do what's done in the commercial world. When things get a bit tough, you can actually tighten your belt. And that doesn't mean giving away all your services. It just means doing things a little smarter, a little better. It's disappointing to see that especially now, we've had the announcement with the timber industry that people are going to be doing it really, really tough in our Shire, and we're not helping them at all. We're taking and asking for more. And I do disagree with the green waste fee. To say that we're the only Shire that doesn't charge at this stage until obviously after tonight, so what? We're unique. We've been able to do this. I just look at this, particularly with the composting, I look at this as an asset coming to the Shire, and it'd be really sad to see that in the future we find, sadly, people breaking the law and dumping, say on the forest tracks or anywhere else. Or the other thing that will happen is probably the green waste will be burnt in people's backyards, creating a heap of smoke. Now, I understand that I think during the fire prevention, leading up to fire prevention time, that can be done. So I think we're forcing people to do things that they probably don't want to do, but will financially have to do. This was brought to us in the last council, and I actually, in reading the document, I think it's the same document that was brought to us. It's the same price. So obviously, to take a $12 per cubic metre fee, that was the same price as was lodged about 4 years ago. So. And still again, I've seen the capital works program be too big. We don't have the capacity, and I'm concerned now that some of the funding may be withdrawn because we can't actually get the contracts out on time. So my worry is that it was such a large capital works program, and I don't want this to happen, but sadly we may see funding not be able to be held by council and have to be repaid or sent back. So I will oppose the budget simply on those grounds. I don't think we're being fair to our community, and so I will vote against.
Councillors, would anybody like to speak for the motion? Councillor Crooke.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is a monumental task, allocating tens of millions of dollars across hundreds of services and projects. We do all this for the benefit of the community, and I would just really welcome people's input into this whole process to a greater extent in the future. If people aren't happy with the way that we go about making these decisions or the decisions that we make, then we need to know. We are doing this for the benefit of the community. We take on a huge burden of work as councillors and as an organisation through our hundreds and hundreds of staff, and we do it with the best of intentions. And we might not get everything right every time, but I think it's fair to say we get most of it right most of the time, and I think this budget is no exception. The Capital Works program is probably one of, if not our biggest ever. But that's because we've been through a massive landscape scale disaster and we've had opportunity for renewal and betterment. And I don't think it's fair to say that we don't have the capacity to deliver on these projects. Like all big projects, that we see that they have some challenges. But our staff are rising to those challenges to deliver on the Capital Works projects. and to deliver on all the other services that we are committed to bringing for the community. So I'd encourage the people who don't like the current budget to participate more in the discussions that we have and the debates that we have, and bring those ideas to the table so we can move a budget that we all do support. Thank you.
Councillor Crooke. Councillor Buckley, you opposed the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I acknowledge that there are many hard-working individuals in our organisation and that councillors value the frank and fearless advice that we're given. And it's the heart of the local government sector which is doing their very best, and we respect the work they have done. And councillors, I also understand that we must oversee the organisation by supporting and monitoring the CEO's performance. We're voted here to voice the community's concerns and expectations to ensure that we achieve fair outcomes, fiscal responsibility and transparency in government. So the following comments are in respect of that expectation. Therefore, I cannot support this budget, and the reasons are the pressures of inflation, interest rate rises, costs of rentals and living expenses that are hitting at the heart of our region. Another Labor state-driven blow delivered directly into the heart of our regional economy, with the hurried political decision to shut down the native timber industry, is having a devastating impact on our region, and one that we have not even begun to understand at this point. Another industry ripped out of rural Australia. We should not be putting further pressure on our ratepayers. I do not support the 3.5% capped impost. We are almost doubling the percentage from last year. And councillors, you know I've pleaded with you to consider a moderate increase of just 1.5%, because councillors, we are in a manageable financial position. We can afford to alleviate some of the community's pain, but I was dismissed and I accept that. Although I understand council staff have faced many changes, real challenges to deliver, we haven't achieved our capital projects for the 2022 period, and the blowout of the World Sporting Precinct issues, along with issues around the Slip Road Maritime Precinct, the constant impost of failings of the design of the Bastion Point boat ramp, and the shortening, perhaps the potential shortening of the Omeo bike trail, which will require ongoing costs to facilitate the assets, have all been noticed by community. And community have voiced concerns with streetscapes projects in Bruthen, Buchan, Mallacoota for various reasons, and also projects in Lakes Entrance going over budget and being delivered late. The remote areas and settlements receive very little, and with the new rural land use strategy, there is new guidelines set, unless amended prior to adoption, regarding remote settlements and rural districts, that further expansion is not supported. Now let that sink in. Further expansion is not supported. As the only remote councillor, I have strongly resisted and opposed this draft in its current form.
I'm going to call a point of order. I consider myself a remote councillor. Councillor Buckley, let's stay on the budget if you wouldn't mind.
In my view, we should rein in our lofty aspirations until inflation settles. Instead, we have a capital works program of $119 million, which equals 56 new projects, and which I have concerns that we may have limitations on being able to complete. Last year, we saw an increase in the farmers' rate by 8.48% and a decrease in the commercial industrial of 13.71%. And I did not support the budget then because of the misguided intent that farmers' commodities markets were up and that they could afford the hit. Well, we know that farmers' commodity markets are at an all-time low now. Costs of producing a high, and this is the last of our heartland industries in this region. This year, we see another impost being placed on ratepayers with the introduction of a new green waste fee of $12 per cubic metre to offset the costs associated with processing green waste. And I can't support that for the following reasons. We're a fire-prone area. We should promote cleaning up of our properties for the safety of our community environment. And we should also create the opportunity for people to drop these raw materials so that ratepayers, which they're in the goodness of their hearts, they drop it off, we can turn it into a commercial product and then profit from that. So it seems counterintuitive and unfair for this impost, especially for people such as vulnerable pensioners who rely
So,
upon...
Councillor Buckley, I'll get you to wind up your speech if you wouldn't mind, please.
Noted, Mayor. And the argument that peri-urban or other councillors have green waste fees is not a sound one. In Western Australia, all trail loads right across the state are accepted free. So in closing, Mayor, I would like to propose to put forward a motion to amend the budget as follows, that removal of the 12 green waste charge from the budget. So I'm putting forward a motion to amend the budget as follows, which is the removal of the $12 green waste charge from the budget. Have I
Just
been
stand
put
by.
on
I'm seeking
silent?
clarification. Just stand by. If you were here, you'd be able to understand. Councillor Buckley, stand by. Yep. So at this stage, we need to know... Yep, we just need getting clarification on this. So the mover and second would need to understand what the amendment is and to accept it or otherwise.
Correct, Chair. The mover and the seconder will both need to agree to the amendment.
So have you provided that in writing, Councillor Buckley, so we can see what it is that you're asking? No.
Yes, I can certainly send that through right now. And here it should get into Vanessa's box momentarily. There we go. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow. It should be through to her now.
So my understanding is that your amendment is the removal of the $12 charge for green waste. Is that's all we've got?
Correct.
Councillor Uri, you moved the motion. Do you accept that as an amendment?
Excuse me, Mayor, you might just want to wait a second.
So I'm just following the procedure, and that is that the mover and seconder need to accept the amendment.
I do not accept the amendment.
Seconder?
I don't accept the amendment.
Okay. Yes, so stand by, councillors.
Through you, Chair, as the mover and seconder have not indicated their agreement to the amendment, it would require a seconder, and then if it is seconded, the amendment would be debated and then voted on, but the debate would be confined only to the amendment.
The amendment, which is to remove the $12 green waste fee. Is there a seconder? Councillor White. There you go. So now we're going to debate this. So the mover, which is Councillor Buckley, off you go. You can speak to your motion.
Well, yes, I certainly will. Look, councillors, we're a fire-prone area. We've got a duty of care to ensure that our community will go to the effort to do the hard work to clean up their yards, their properties, their vacant blocks, to ensure that we have safe communities. Now, we are putting an impediment into that safety aspect of our community. Have you forgotten that we just went through a major fire event? Councillors,
Mayor,
if I can have
I wish to put the motion.
Sorry, there's a procedural motion that the motion be put.
I wish to move that the motion be put.
Is there a seconder? The seconder, Councillor Stowe. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, that was the actual amendment? Are we
The
voting on
amendment,
the amendment?
correct, yes.
Yes.
Those against? The amendment motion is lost. We go back to the original debate. Councillor Stowe, you were about to speak in favour of the budget.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I believe this is a fair budget. We've discussed this over briefings for some months now. Everyone's had a chance to put their views, and everybody has. And some of the things I've heard tonight I haven't heard previously, which is a pity. The situation is inflation's running at 7 to 8% and could go higher, but it's 7 to 8% at the moment. Our rates are going up 3.5%. We're half of what inflation means. Our expenses are increasing by 7%. Our rates mean that our income's increasing by only 3.5%. So what do? Do we cut back services? Do we cut back on the library, the roads, garbage collection, filling potholes? What do? I think we've been fair. The green waste, for example, at $12, it's the lowest of any shire. There's freebies in November. We've sorted out the trailer situation, and we're charging this in because of the EPA charging us, I think I'm correct in saying $700,000 extra the last 12 months. It's got to be paid for, and it's the fairest way of paying for it because the user pay system. We could spread, the money has to be collected from somewhere, and we could spread this out in a special charge right over the Shire, but that wouldn't be fair that people who don't use the green waste facility are paying for it. So user pay, in my opinion, is the best way of doing it. So I'm in favour of passing the motion as it stands, the budget at least as it stands.
Councillors, is there any other opposition to the motion? Councillors, I'll just add before you have a right of reply, Councillor Uri, that for all my time as a councillor, I've stood by the motion of having free green waste. We've got to the point where we can't afford it, that the cost shifting from the state government is such that we just can't afford that. And my research, both in Canberra and around local council, show it is consistent with what's happening across the sector. It is a user pays. Speaking to councillor friends in other shires that are also in regional and rural areas, there isn't an increase in illegal dumping. People who dump illegally will do it whether it's free or has a cost, and we see that with waste metal. Waste metal's free in our council transfer stations, and people will still go and dump it. The people who do the right thing will continue to do the right thing, and law enforcement officers will continue to pursue those who don't. So $12 is a really reasonable fee. You can take it up to Alpine Shire and get charged $18.50 if you like, or you can drive over to Bega and get charged $16, or down to Wellington and get charged $16, or down to Listerfield and Cardinia and get charged $44. But here it's very, very reasonable. The Audit and Risk Committee supports the CapEx program. They have said that unequivocally and unambiguously. Go forth and continue what you're doing. It is the most important thing to do. And from my recent conversations with what's happening in New South Wales, if we don't keep up with our CapEx program and keep our assets up to date and renewed, we end up with the disaster that is happening in New South Wales. Bega Valley Shire, 24% rate rise this year, 19% next year, just to catch up. Snowy Valleys, 35.9% rate rise over 2 years, and that'll only just keep up. This is responsible. Keeping up, we know incremental increases, keeping up is the most sensible and reliable and accountable thing to do, councillors. This is a complex shire. 3 airfields. There's hardly any other shire in Australia that maintains 3 airfields. And there's an expectation in our remote communities, as a remote councillor, that people who get injured, like one of my friends in Marlow, can be airlifted out of an airport from Mallacoota or Marlow at all kinds of weather in day and night, and we maintain those. Fishers expect 29 boat ramps, more boat ramps than around the bay that we look after, and our visitor economy relies on those. And the visitor economy blossoms when we have boaters come and visit councillors. And they like to go and relieve themselves in 114 toilet blocks that are maintained, cleaned every day. That's the sort of complexity this shire has, and it doesn't come for free. And councillors, every time I pay my rates, it hurts, but I go out and look at what we get for our rates, and I feel proud of that. And I hope that you do as well, and I hope our community does. Councillor Uri, you've got a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. I can just reiterate those words that I read out, because I think that I think they're true. I remember the very many budget briefings that we had led by our officers, where we went so carefully through different scenarios and tried and tested what would happen if we didn't reduce the rates by the cap. What would happen if we dropped it to 1%, or if we didn't have a rate increase at all? And I think it was abundantly clear to us that that wouldn't just have an effect on the next 12 months budget, but it would flow right through to 5 years and 10 years. And as we know, one of the effects that it would have would be an inability to maintain our $1 billion plus worth of assets in this Shire. That costs an enormous amount of money. So I think where we've landed with this budget is responsible, and I dispute some of the things that Councillor White and Councillor Buckley have said. Regarding the green waste, I think you've expressed that very well, Mr Mayor. It's a matter of, again, being fair and recouping some of the money that it costs to deal with the green waste. It's not a right to have free green waste. I believe I was on council, and I think it was about 2005, when free green waste was introduced. Before that time, there was a fee. So that's not so long ago. And I think depending on the circumstance, we need to reassess these things as we go along. We cannot afford to do that at the moment. That might change in the future. And I don't think we should assume that people will do the wrong thing because of that. In fact, I hope that every person in our Shire appreciates our roadways and our bush environments and considers what it would mean if they didn't do the right thing with their green waste, and I hope they will continue to bring it to the landfill. So I can only reiterate some of those comments, Mr Mayor, and hope that the councillors will support the passing of this, what I believe is a fair budget. Thank you.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillors, that concludes the debate. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 5.1.2 is the adoption of the 10-year financial plan.
Sorry, Mayor. May I call for a division?
Of course you can.
Thank you.
So, councillors who supported the budget, proudly put up your hands. Councillor Greeson, Councillor Uri, Councillor Reeves, Councillor Allen, Councillor Stowe, Councillor Crooke, Councillor Van Diggle, those who oppose the budget, Councillor Buckley and Councillor White. Let the record show that. Councillors, we'll move on to item 5.1.2, the adoption of the 10-year and 4-year revenue and rating plan.
Just what we need,
Yes.
more discussion about
Absolutely.
budget.
Long-term planning is important.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you was a report seeking your consideration and adoption of the draft 10-year financial plan at attachment 1 and the draft 4-year revenue and rating plan at attachment 2. Key points of the report are that Council has updated the 10-year financial plan and the 4-year revenue and rating plan in conjunction with the budget for next financial year to ensure financial resources required to give effect to the council plan are aligned. The financial plan provides a long-term view of the resources that are expected to be available to council and the proposed or predicted application and use of those resources. The plan is updated each year to reflect the financial planning for the next 10 years. The 4-year revenue and rating plan provides the medium-term plan for how council will generate income to deliver on the council plan, on its programs, the services, the capital works commitments over that 4-year period. Community feedback was sought on the 2 documents and has been considered by councillors, with no changes being made as a result of that consideration. The officer recommendation is on page 145 of your agenda. With me this evening is Ms Liz Collins, Manager Finance, to address any questions of a technical nature. The report is presented for your consideration.
Ms Allen, thanks so much. Ms Collins, thank you. Councillors, are there questions of our officers about this item? I will ask a question then, Ms Collins. Then in terms of producing these financial statements and this document, what's the legislation and the requirements for compliance about producing these?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there is a legislative requirement to have for council to adopt a 10-year financial plan and a 4-year revenue and rating plan, and they became mandatory with the introduction of the new Local Government Act 2020. And in terms of each year, we obviously review those and continue to ensure that they are providing that information for, in the financial plan, the next 10 years and the 4-year revenue and rating plan, so that it does align with our budget and council plan. But in legislation, we must have these documents.
And these
in place.
reports comply with all of those requirements?
And these reports comply with all of those requirements.
Fantastic, thank you. Let the record show that. Councillor Stowe.
Could I just ask about our loans, outstanding loans? What period have they still got to run and how much they are roughly?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Stowe. As you're aware, we've got the 2 community infrastructure low-interest loan borrowings that we took up, Eagle Point and World, of just over just over $8 million. And we then have, which will be repaid through the term of this 10 years, all of those loans will be repaid, plus the balance of the Tambo Bluff drainage scheme, sewerage drainage scheme, that was to be funded from, and which was funded from all of those residents and owners in that scheme. So through the life of this loan at the 10 years, you'll see by the end, all of those loans are repaid in full by the end.
So basically we've got very low borrowings, very low interest rate and a very strong balance sheet.
Yes, we do have low borrowings. Even the borrowings taking up the new loans, we still sit within the low range in terms of the borrowings. Interest rates are locked in for the balance of the Tambo scheme loan, but in terms of community infrastructure loan, when we draw those funds down, they'll get locked in. We're not sure where that interest rate might sit, but it's certainly at a discount to what the commercial interest rates are. So certainly a good outcome with the interest rate as well as the loans. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, question, then Councillor Uri.
Yeah, Liz, in 2020, I believe there was no rate increase. And I'm just wondering what the legacy cost of that is each year through the forward projections. If you could elaborate on that, please.
When there was no increase in the rates and charges from the base rates, which, and I can't remember what the cap was for that year, but for 1%, it's say $500,000. So that $500,000. So if it was 2% that we foregone, that was foregone during that period, that amount then never gets back into your cash. So that $1 million, take that out over 10 years, even without inflation, that's $10 million less cash that you would have at the end of that 10 years. Now, we factored that into the longer term planning, financial planning, and we were able to do that for that 1 year. But certainly what you lose in this year, you've lost every year for thereon because you haven't increased that base, yes. So in that case, $10+ million over the life of this plan.
Thanks, Liz.
Councillor Uri, did you have a question?
Yes, I think thank you, Mayor. I was looking at the 10-year financial plan and some of the out years. It's obviously pretty difficult to predict with accuracy about some of these figures, but In some of the years, we are going to be dependent on a certain amount of grants from, well, we're always dependent on grants, but for some years we'll be looking for federal and state grants to bring us up to any sort of equity. We never, because there's not a great degree of certainty, how can we, is there any way of predicting that a little bit better, or can we assume that those grants will just come through?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor, for that question, Councillor Uri. It does get more difficult the further out we go, and as you said, and probably in that renewal gap where we just drop below that 100% in those out years, but the comment being that what we would expect when we get to those points in time, that there would be government grants that would be available for us to apply for, that would be used in terms of those capital projects. What we do and only assume in those out years is that the Roads to Recovery funding, which is our ongoing funding for capital programs, that it is the only would be Roads to Recovery or an equivalent source of funding, is the only funding that we can be certain of. And so whilst it may show that a couple of those ratios will drop below where we would like them to sit, as I said, the expectation would be that yes, you would, but to just put it in there when it is unknown probably is a little bit misleading to do that. So we put in what's known, here's the worst case scenario, and we expect it to be better if we're able to source funding for that.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor, are there any further questions? I'm down in the weeds with my question, Liz, if that's all right. It's about the assumptions around government grants, and 1% and 3%. That's quite conservative, I'm hoping. You do that deliberately?
Yes, in terms of our ongoing funding, in terms of a whole range of programs that we receive, whether they be libraries, school crossings normally, the government always discount what would be, you know, if CPI is sitting at 3%, we still get 1%. You know, so they're very modest increases that we would receive, historically it's shown, on our recurrent operating grants for programs. The Grants Commission, Victorian Grants Commission, which comes from the federal through to the state to us, their expectation there is a little bit more, just based on some of the disability factors and other factors that go into that complicated formula for East Gippsland Shire. So I guess we've used the most up-to-date information and historical data to determine that would be, whilst a conservative, I guess, rate, we've kept things in balance though, and we adjust those every year. So, you know, if it is better next year, then it will be reflected in the out years then.
Yep, thank you. My other quick question is, in the balance sheet under liabilities, current and non-current, there's a provision there for unearned income. What's unearned income? Is it stuff that people haven't paid us, obviously? So,
and once again, one of those, you know, accounting standard requirements. So, and it's mainly to do with the capital funding, where the funding agreement says you don't have the right to that income until you've delivered X, Y or Z. So many of the capital projects, we can't bring the grant funding that we may have received in advance into the project until the project gets to that point where it says, yes, you've met the requirements, you can now have that income offset. So that is primarily capital funding. Most of the operating funding does not have the same restrictions.
Right.
Yep. But introduced a couple of years ago with new accounting standards, yes.
Yep, haven't seen it before. Good, okay. Councillor, are there any further questions? Councillors, there is a recommendation there. I'll just scroll back to it. I like the pictures on the front of that report, thank you. There's a recommendation. Do we have a motion, councillors? Councillor Allen, do we have a seconder? Councillor Stowe, Councillor Allen, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. These two important documents support our council's financial future, the draft 10-year financial plan and the draft 4-year revenue and rating plan. Both support the provision of essential services to the community and public amenity that residents rely on and enjoy. These plans have been carefully revised and updated in conjunction with our 23-24 budget. They ensure that our financial resources align with our commitments as outlined in the council plan. The 10-year financial plan gives us a long-term view of our available resources and how we plan to use them. It's updated every year to reflect our financial plans for the next decade. We take a cautious approach when estimating future rate caps and CPI percentage increases, and these figures are reviewed annually. We've included assumptions that the 4-year budget in the 23-24 financial year. This information, along with key financial indicators, supports the Council's financial stability. Moving on to the 4-year revenue and rating plan, it outlines how we'll generate income over the next 4 years to fulfil our commitments to the community. It covers delivering on the council plan, programs, services and capital works projects during that period. It defines the revenue and rating framework in which we'll operate, as reflected in our 10-year financial plan and 23-24 budget. The revenue and rating plan indicates our revenue sources and expected income from each category. It also explains the assumptions that we've made to fund the proposed expenses in the 4-year budget. I encourage our community to take the time to read these documents alongside the council plan and draft budget 23-24. These documents provide valuable insight into the various projects and services we provide to the people of East Gippsland and demonstrate our commitment to responsible financial planning. Councillors, the 10-year financial plan presents a financially sound and sustainable view of our council's expected financial position over the next decade. Similarly, the 4-year revenue and rating plan provides important information regarding our revenue planning for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Councillor Allen. Councillor Stowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, it's very difficult to add much to what Arthur said because he's done it very well. But I'd just like to make the observation that this Shire shows great business acumen with the way they go about their business. We've got a very solid financial position and we're well managed by our expert staff.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously, councillors. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to item 5.1.3, which is the instrument. Thanks, Liz. Instrument of appointment and authorisation. Selling, it's you again. Instrument of appointment and authorisation, Planning and Environment Act.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a report seeking council approval to appoint 2 new authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act of 1987. That Act specifically requires that authorised officers are appointed by resolution of council. Therefore, the appointment of the 2 new statutory planning officers, we're seeking council approval of the 2 instruments of appointment and authorisation that are provided in your agenda as attachments to this report. Also present this evening is Acting Manager Governance Janelle Skipworth, who is available to respond to questions of a technical nature. Thank you.
Pardon me, sorry. Councillors, any questions? Thanks, councillors. Seems procedural. There's a recommendation, councillors. Do we have a motion? Councillor Crooke. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Van Diggle, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Crooke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that this is a legislative requirement that we empower our planners under the relevant acts and legislation. So I'm happy to move it.
Councillor Van Diggle. Councillor, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillors, thank you. It's carried unanimously. Councillors, we're going to jump over 5.2, which has been dealt with, and we're going to go to 5.2.3, which is Contract 2023-1561R, Construction of Wetlands. Correction 5.2.2, Contract 2023-1521, Cann River Skate Park. Ms Weigel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm delighted to bring this contract to Council for consideration this evening. For the replacement of the Cann River Skate Park right in the heart of Cann River, which recognises that the existing skate park is no longer fit for purpose. In the development of the Cann Valley Community Plan some time ago, this was identified as a community priority by both for the young people within the community and also as an opportunity to help people that have stopped to stay for longer, you know, parents that are travelling with children or whatever, that they stop and play in the skate park. We've seen the success of skate parks in other locations, such as Malakota recently and Bairnsdale before that. The design, while similar to those designs, brings some unique elements to Cann River, which will deliver a unique experience to those wanting to use that skate park. As you can see from the attachments, the project has gone through extensive consultation, and there's also a confidential attachment which outlines the budget around the project and also makes a recommendation about from the tender evaluation panel around the preferred tenderer. The project is being delivered with funding through the bushfire recovery funding from the federal government and funding from council. And I'm happy to take any questions on this exciting project for Cann River.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Councillors, are there any questions on this important little project? Big project for that community. Yes, Councillor Greeson.
Did I read somewhere in the report, Ms Weigel, that when this was being prepared and visiting Cann River, there were at least 20 people using the skate park at that time? So it is well utilised already?
I believe there were, yes. There's very few sort of recreational infrastructure and activities outside of the school ovals for young people in Cann River, so it does get a lot of use, even though it's a relatively small community. And it's a great, as we know, Cann River is also a great stopping point for those that are travelling through. So this helps keep people there for longer, spend a little bit more money in the economy as well, so yes.
Very good. Councillor Buckley, you had a question?
Just in regards to that, I was curious, and I did raise the point the other day, so maybe the public are interested to know how many kids are in Cann River, as it's a small sort of remote area, and it's just nice that they're going to be, you know, they've got this updated facility and fully supportive of it, but I'm just wondering how many it will cater for.
I can answer that because I approached the principal, a friend of mine. There's 44 students at Cann River P to 12.
And of course, we know that young adults also use skating infrastructure. It's not just for the local community. As we've said, there's a lot of passing traffic that stops in Cann River. It includes people that have got a skateboard in their luggage because they're going to Malakota to use that one as well.
That's great. Councillor Van Diggle, question.
I'm just wondering, Fiona, how the recommendations from base plate and the consultation that took place, how many of those recommendations are actually being adopted? Because I also recognise I was actually at the consultation when that took place, and some of their recommendations were very big and probably unrealistic, but how much is actually...
Thank you, Councillor. I wasn't at all the consultations, so I will attempt to answer it as best I can. So it was really looking at the abilities of that skate group as well as their aspirations and trying to design something within budget that could meet both of those things. So there were elements that couldn't be brought into the design, but there also were elements that were brought in to provide that opportunity and to provide a unique experience. Where we have had to look at the budget and where we needed to trim some things off the budget, they were around those peripheral things like landscaping and signage that we can actually undertake ourselves through other processes rather than through a further reduction of the skate park itself.
Because there's no picture, is there, of the actual skate park design that's going to be...
It's embedded in the report, I believe, so it's on your page 231. And then there is also an attachment to it that shows you. Attachment 3 also gives you that. It's a bit small, you have to make it very large to look at it.
I do actually swear that I actually did see that at one stage. I just forgot it was in there.
Yeah, secret safe.
Thank you, thank you.
231 is a map. Yes, Councillor Uri.
I'm pleased to see the tree. I understand from the report that this is a constrained site and it's largely because of the trees, but it's fantastic that the trees are still there because then they will provide some shade and perhaps, averts the need for a specific artificial shade structure.
That's right, and that's the importance of making sure that the consultants are on site and listening to the views of the community and also get a feel for the site that they're working with. They're not designing remotely, so we do make sure that the consultants are on board. And I should mention that we developed these in partnership with Save the Children, who also assisted us with that consultation and the engagement of the young people.
Councillor Uri, thank you. Councillor White.
My question's fairly simple, unless I've missed it in reading the report, but we actually only have one tenderer for this project?
That's in the confidential attachment, Councillor, so I'm not sure that we can discuss it in the open meeting.
Sorry, councillors, I just remind councillors around the confidentiality part of the report and that aspect, just for everybody's benefit in future. I mean, the genie's out of the bottle now, but just for councillors' reminder in future. Sorry, Ms Weigel.
Perhaps if I could just say generically, the number of tenderers that we have for projects differs. Sometimes we get lots, sometimes we get less. But the tender evaluation process is developed as a very objective process and has a range of criteria that we look at and make sure that the tenderers, however many we've got, are scored against that. So one or two good tenderers is just as good as multiple tenderers that may not meet the same quality and requirements of the tender.
Yep, thank you. Councillor White, thank you. Councillors that have further questions? Ms Weigel, my question is about the interaction of this development with our recently moved car park and that other development and how that's going to interact with the Mickbone Park area.
Thank you, Councillor.
And the consideration of that with this design.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a great question and they were designed to complement each other, to make sure that they spoke to each other, though they are different funding sources, so obviously had to be different contracts and different expertise in the two projects. So certainly the parking at the back of this will support the use of the skate park and is designed so that we can encourage those locals that are coming down to use the skate park to not be parking in that premium parking that would be used by those passing through, but can park at the back of the skate park and walk through from the back through to it.
Very good. Councillors, are there any further questions? In which case, councillors, there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion? Councillor Greason, do we have a seconder? Councillor Van Diggle. Councillor Greason wishes to move the item. And there is the blanks on the screen. Councillor Greason, would you be comfortable in populating the blanks with the tenderer that you are recommending?
Thank you, yes. So just in point 2, accepts the tender submitted by Grind Projects Proprietary Limited for Con 2023 1521 Cann River Skate Park redevelopment for the contract amount of $544,748.50, exclusive of GST.
Councillor Greason. Councillor Van Diggle, as seconder, are you happy to be seconding that?
Yes.
That's what you're seconding? Terrific. Councillor Greason, did you want to speak to the motion?
Oh, just very briefly, just to say I think it's very timely, it's very much in need of an upgrade, and obviously we will be well used. And I think an additional cohort that wasn't mentioned in this briefing of people who may use it is dropping kids and dad off when you head off with your EV to recharge it.
Absolutely. Councillor Van Diggle.
I just want to add, I was involved from the beginning phases when the consultation took place with Save the Children, and I have been going back to Cann River, and they've all been really excited about the fact that it's been on the agenda. And I think it's also really valuable to know that, Save the Children went out and also did the community consultation, and it wasn't a tokenistic process. We were able to actually adopt it at council and actually do something with it. And I know it's more than just wheeled sports, and it's more than just children. Like you've said, Fiona, there's a range of ages that use it. And in its current form, it is quite unsafe. I mentioned it in a briefing. We did the consultation to initially just assess the safety of it before it was, coming up to the highest of standards, and there was a young person that just was scooting and hit the side of whatever half pipe, I don't know what it's called, and fell and hurt themselves. So first of all, it's amazing that we can make it safer, but it's also amazing that we can do this for Cann River. We've had an updated skate park in Bairnsdale. There's going to be an updated skate park in Malakuta, and I also believe they're doing it in Eden. So now we have this beautiful trails of modern skate parks, which I'm really excited about.
Up the East Coast, fantastic. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Or would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Uri.
I need to add that it's also fantastic to be delivering a project from the District Community Plan, Cann Valley District Community Plan. It's always great to do that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Councillors, are there any further speakers for or against the motion? In which case I'll put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Cann River will be very pleased about that. Councillors, we move on to item 5.2.3. This is contract 2023-1561R, construction of wetlands, Crooke Street, East Bairnsdale, and I remember going down there to see this proposal, and this is an exciting contract to be awarding.
It is another exciting one. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Before you is a report that makes recommendations for awarding a contract to construct a wetland at 76 Crooke Street in East Bairnsdale, which is, as you know, from those of you who have visited the site, abuts the Gippsland lakes and is an important part of managing the water flows, our water flows and stormwater flows into the Gippsland lakes. The land is owned by council. It was purchased for this purpose some years ago, and we've been able to partner with the state government through both DECA and the East Gippsland Catchment Management Authority's Love Our Lakes program to collectively all fund this project, which will deliver some really great outcomes in terms of better regulating surface water and reducing the impact of flooding within the design for that area. It too has some background in strategic plans, both the Lucknow Pre-Construction Plan, which was adopted by council, and the Integrated Water Management Plan, which was adopted by a range of agencies and is a partnership project with East Gippsland Water and others, identifies this as a priority project. The project is as a first for council also includes a citizen science component, which is really quite exciting. So there's a learning about the importance of wetlands, whether they be constructed or natural wetlands. It also supports the use of the Gunai Land and Waters Aboriginal Corporation personnel as the subcontractor in the delivery of these works. Councillors, there is a confidential attachment to the report, which outlines the tender evaluation process and provides the budget details. I'm happy to take any further questions on the project.
Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Buckley, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. I just have a procedures question. if I wish to ask a question in regards to the confidential attachment, does that mean we have to move a motion to go in camera?
Yes, it would. That would be my understanding. And we can do that if you require a conversation about an element of the confidential attachment. Yep.
I move a motion to go into camera. Yeah.
Just a moment, so I'll just get this right. So Councillor Buckley wishes to move a motion to discuss the confidential attachment at item 5.2.3. That's correct. So, this is what you'll be doing, Councillor Buckley, that you're moving in accordance with section 66(2) of the Local Government Act, the meeting be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the confidential item, attachment of item 5.2.3. Is that correct? That's what you want to do?
That is correct,
Great.
Mayor. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Stowe. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Anybody else? Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Buckley? Bearing in mind the confidential nature, you don't need to disclose.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, you don't need to speak to it, Councillor Stowe?
No, thank you. At
Is
this
the motion
stage.
opposed, councillors? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote that we move into a closed meeting. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. That's Councillor White. back into public. And so now
Yep, we're good. We're on.
we're on. So we're back in public. Good evening, everyone, if you're still watching. Do we need a procedural motion now to extend the meeting? I suspect we might before we vote on this. Councillors, I'm asking to extend the meeting for 1 hour.
No, 15 minutes.
I suggest we move it for 1 hour and be done in 15.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's aim
Move it, extend the meeting for 1 hour. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Crooke. Is the motion opposed? Anybody like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote to extend the meeting for 1 hour if required. Thanks, councillors. That's carried. Okay, we are still dealing with contract 2023-1561, construction of wetlands at Crooke Street, Bairnsdale. Are there any further questions on the in-public report? Councillors, I see none. Thank you. In which case, exactly as I was going to ask, we have a recommendation, a motion from Councillor Uri, seconded Councillor Greason. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion? Correction. I would just like to, this is the motion, and you are going to suggest to populate it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to the second point, that Council accepts the tender submitted by Wetlands Group Investments Proprietary Limited for Con 2023-1561R, construction of wetlands, Crooke Street, East Bairnsdale, for the contract amount of $1,797,355.14, exclusive of GST.
Thank you, Councillor Uri. Just put that on the screen. That's just to check that that is what you're moving. Councillor Greason, is that what you're seconding? Councillor Uri, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly to say this is a very exciting project, particularly because it involves so many partners and citizen scientists for the first time. I think since many of us have been down on to visit on site, we understand sort of what's involved, and I think we'll all look forward to seeing the progress, especially because of the very strong link with the Gippsland Lakes, which of course are incredibly important to this area. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Uri. Councillor Greason.
Just to say, I'm really looking forward to seeing this new wetlands for East Gippsland when it's completed and walking around it and enjoying it. And it's a great project.
Councillors, thank you. Councillors, the motion opposed. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillors, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillors, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, we're on to item 5.2.4. Navigate your way to page 265. And this is a report for receiving and noting. Ms Weigel, that's yours.
Thank you, Councillors. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. As you see, there's a report before you that goes through a lot of information that has been part of our quarterly capital update reports to Council, but really breaks down and goes through in some detail some of the challenges we've had around delivering the capital program this year and a lot of those external factors, and the measures that we've taken to mitigate and manage those challenges. This project and this report has also been through the Audit and Risk Committee and discussed in detail with the Audit and Risk Committee on a number of occasions. As councillors know, and as we've already discussed when we were discussing the budget, in the last couple of years, council has been able to attract unprecedented levels of external funding into our capital program, which is allowing us to deliver some great projects for our community and projects that have been in plans and in the pipeline for a very long time, but we haven't been able to deliver through our normal capital program. So it's had a huge stimulus and impact on our local economy through our local contractors, but also will have enduring benefit for generations in terms of the projects that we're delivering. Of course, we received a lot of this funding and we were developing projects in a time where we saw unprecedented inflation. We were dealing with delays caused both by COVID, and we were dealing with issues around a range of very unusual aspects around supply. So when we look at the report, it actually goes through that in quite a detail. So the reasons for not being able to deliver the full program this year included increase in market prices and contracting prices, time delays between setting the budget and going to market for tenders, in which time costs had escalated significantly, project contract variations for our contractors, the availability of contractors, the capacity of some of our contractors that are spread across multiple demands and clients. And the high component of the program, which is grant funded, with many of these external milestones and deadline requirements being really very difficult to achieve for anyone. And our internal project management capacity at the time of embarking on this program. So really that took us to a point where we had to really look at how we were delivering. But I would note that we're not the only council that is facing these challenges, and indeed many councils across Victoria and across Australia are dealing with similar issues of infrastructure, cost escalations and an overstretched construction industry. The report goes through that in some detail, but I would just draw council's attention to the last area of the report, which is our management mechanisms, and the 10 points that we've put in there, which are how we have redesigned our program, how we've really learnt from our experience in terms of what we're doing to ensure that we can deliver projects that are timely and also have very high quality. So we look at our design requests, and we now factor escalation costs into our design. We look at our final designs, and we go through a final external cost estimate or a quantity surveying process to ensure that the project is managed before it goes to tender, so that we understand what the market price is likely to be. We use provisional items within a tender so we can take elements out of a program if we need to. We use best and final offers and other value management practices post-tender. We regularly review the overall program to identify risk and manage the sequencing of projects. And we use variation of time and scope milestones in grant-funded projects by working closely with our funding bodies to make sure that we can move those milestones. And we also hold an annual workshop with contractors. It's coming up in July again, at the beginning of the financial year, so that they have a really good understanding of what's coming forward and can be prepared for that program. We use a panel of contractors often, so that we have schedules of rates so that the pricing is understood and can be budgeted for. We've increased our in-house resourcing with additional project supervisors and design managers and procurement officers to ensure that we have the internal capacity to deliver. And we've increased our project contingency in the planning and early budgeting stages of the project. So, councillors, the report in front of you goes through this in some detail. I won't go through that in detail with you, other than to be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Ms Weigel. Councillors, are there any questions of Ms Weigel? Go ahead, Sonia. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Ms Weigel, the management mechanisms, these are a new method of operation that were not in place before, and I'm assuming, and it's been deemed necessary to put these in place so that you will now feel confident to be able to deliver on our capital works program into the future. Is that correct?
That's mostly correct. Some of the mechanisms were already there, and we've tightened or reinforced them or changed the parameters, and some are new. So we've always used best and final offer for example, when we're going through a tender process, but we now use that really, really regularly. We used to use quantity surveying processes for some of our projects. We're now using it for a lot more. So it's really about strengthening and tightening the use of these mechanisms, while some are new, so that, you know, we set a proportion of the available budget for our design so it allows for contingency. So we've learned from that period of really high escalation when we got caught between when grant funding was awarded, we had designs that had been costed in place, and then when we got to the marketplace, prices have gone up significantly. So the combination, Councillor, of new mechanisms and reinforced and strengthened existing mechanisms.
And how do you oversee how you're tracking with it all? What mechanisms are in place to be able to gauge whether you're having the success or meeting your KPIs or your benchmarks?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Councillor. About 12 months ago, we went from a project management framework, which we designed in-house, and we're using really through Excel spreadsheets, and I went to a computer program process, which is part of an existing program that we use for all of our reporting and council report milestones and the like. So that allows us to not just look at individual projects, but look at how we're travelling right across the program. It's a very sophisticated program, and one that we use now and rolling out for all of our projects, and it's now being used by a number of other councils as well. So it's a very detailed project management process, sorry I'm losing my voice, which allows us to look at the program in its entirety. So some of the reports that you see in the charts and the graphs that you see in our regular reports to you come through from that program now.
If I may, through you, Mayor, I might add to Ms Weigel's comments. A presentation on that program was provided to the Audit and Risk Committee a couple of meetings ago with great, was received very well. Thank you.
Ms Weigel, my question is, and thanks for that clarification and reminder, these control mechanisms are really important and almost critical, as it's turned out, but they come with some costs and as well as benefits. So delays, financial costs and so on, that there's...
So they do...
QSs are not free.
The QSs, they do come with delays, so it's about when we're programming our projects, making sure that we're programming them to allow for that. So when we're looking at our grant applications now, we make sure that our coordinator of project design looks at it as well, to make sure that we've allowed enough time for each of those stages before we even submit a grant, so that we're very clear about what our processes are and what the time of those processes are. Yep. We have an overhead that we apply to our program as well, and we capitalise our staff, so our staff in this area. So the cost of our personnel are built into the projects as well. So it does come with a cost, but I think we've talked about value management earlier in the meeting. I think this is another example of best value, is to build those costs and those timeframes in.
Yep. Very good. Thanks. Councillor Uri.
I'm impressed with this report. I've seen it a number of times now, but I think it's really good. I'm wondering whether it's shared with other councils or whether we've had a chance to present it in some other forums.
Now that it's been to council, I think that's a great opportunity for us, Councillor, to start to share it.
Yep.
Certainly, the team's been down meeting with some of their teams in other councils and talking about what we do and showing them some of our processes. When there's a fair level of sophistication in our processes that is being appreciated by other councils. So certainly now that we've brought this council to this to council and it's in the public forum, we'll be able to share it more broadly as well.
Fantastic. And I think, you know, as we go on, I mean, with climate change, we know there's going to be more disruption, and it might be that, you know, we'll have to reconsider some of these in light of what the current circumstance is, but we can use this as a baseline to adjust the way we manage a CapEx program.
I agree. Yes, I think it's not a set and forget. We've got a really dedicated team that are always looking at how they can improve their mechanisms and how they can improve their project management systems as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Councillor, are there any further questions? Ms Michael, my question would be about the cost of quantity surveys. Would we see that in our budget under the likes of consultancy fees, and is that where we'd pick that up?
You'd see it in your budget and consultancy fees as part of design work, yes.
Yep. Okay, good, thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillors, there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Crooke, seconder. Councillor Greason. Councillor Crooke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that it's obviously really important that we have some mechanisms in place to ensure we can deliver on our capital expenditure projects over the next couple of years. As we've seen from the forecast, this is expected to be somewhat of a temporary problem to last for the next couple of years, and then we're looking to go back to somewhere around normal. Well, let's hope so.
Councillor Greason, you seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
I think this is going to be very useful to us when we have community people ringing us up or talking to us about the risks we face given the massive amount of money that's come into the council this year and how are we managing our contracts, etc. So this is very valuable. In fact, we referred to it today to someone we were speaking to, and I think this is well done. Thank you.
Councillors, thank you. Is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Uri.
Yes, there was another aspect of this that I was thinking about. Historically, when we look back on this little period of the last 2 or 3 years when we've had such a huge capital expenditure program, I think it's possible that we'll feel a little happy with ourselves and our work. I mean, I know that so much work has gone into delivering the CapEx program, but by the staff primarily, and this is part of the picture. But I think if we do return to some level of normalcy, it'll be about the end of our councillor term, and we'll look back and think, oh well, that was a major part of it. Trying to deliver this capital program. So I think it's great work. Thank you.
Thanks. And councillors, my observation and comment about this probably relates to that VAGO request, and they're looking at this issue. It's a ubiquitous issue right across the country, and I think this is a great starting point for us to be able to contribute to VAGO's investigation into cost escalations and the challenges of CapEx works. And you might remember that VAGO has invited ourselves as a large rural shire, Monash, large metropolitan shire, Shepparton, regional city, Cardinia, peri-urban, and Yarra City, inner urban, to contribute. So all of these areas are challenged with these matters, and I think it's a great opportunity to look at this and see how we're going to contribute to the overall understanding of the challenges across the sector. So nice job, and absolutely great to see it, and look forward to be able to seeing a report around how we contribute to VAGO as well, which is going to be another opportunity cost. Anyway, councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Carried unanimously, CEO. Thank you. Councillors, I don't think there's any urgent business that I'm aware of, but we need to move into confidential again so that we close the meeting to the public according with provisions section 66(2) of the Local Government Act to consider the following item: council insurances. And it's been moved by Councillor Van Diggle, I think, and seconded by Councillor Allen. Do you need to speak to the motion? Does anybody oppose going into confidentiality? No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public. ready to go. Okay, so we're back in public. Councillors, it's 10 minutes past 9. Members of the public and councillors and officers, thanks very much for your attendance and joining us at the council meeting tonight. It's been a long meeting and a detailed meeting and an important meeting. Officers, once again, thank you for your reports and the work you do to provide reports that enable councillors to make good decisions. Councillors and officers, there is a 2-week winter recess, so enjoy the break away and we'll see you on the other side. If this was Parliament, we'd all be trotting off to the midwinter ball now, but we won't be doing a midwinter ball here. I'll declare the meeting closed at 11 minutes past 9. Thanks. Good night, Sonia and John.